Hello, everyone. Guillaume Liswell here, host of the E-commerce Wizards podcast, where I feature leaders in business and e-commerce. Today's guest is Brandon Taylor, CEO and board member of GreenTech Environmental. Today's topic will be the difficulties of launching a new product in an emerging market when customers don't know or don't care about the differences in technology and just look at price. How do you educate an emerging market? This is a very challenging topic and can be also key to launching new products to even transform an industry or to be some kind of disruptor technology. So very interesting topic for today. Before we get started, our sponsorship message. This episode is brought to you by MageMontreal. If a business wants a powerful e-commerce online store that will increase their sales, or to move piled up dormant inventory to free up cash reserves, or to automate business processes to gain efficiency and reduce human processing errors, our company, MageMontreal, can do that. We've been helping e-commerce stores for over a decade. Here's a catch. We're specialized and only work on the Adobe Magento e-commerce platform. We're among only a handful of certified Adobe Magento companies in Canada. We do everything Magento related. If you know someone who needs design, development, maintenance, training, support, debugging, or new build, we got their back. Email our team, support@magemontreal.com, or go to magemontreal.com. That's MAGE Montreal.com. All right, Brandon, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me on.
Can you please give us a brief introduction about you and your background as an entrepreneur?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so my background is, again, Brandon Taylor, CEO of GreenTech. And my background is on the corporate surface, not as an entrepreneur.
Oh, sorry. Apologies.
Yeah, that's okay, right? But in small businesses, you kind of transform that way. I've got been with large companies in excess of billions in terms of the energy business and construction businesses as well. And most of those were focused on turnarounds. They were focused on really growing the business and transforming the business from where it was, and then that led me into bankruptcy and some private equity ventures. With that said, I came to GreenTech, which was a founder-led business, and ultimately, became CEO of this company. And it's an extremely exciting organization and an extremely exciting company to be a part of. The reason being is it's an emerging opportunity. GreenTech plays in the IAQ space. And if you're not aware of the IAQ space, it's the air purification. And so, indoor air quality is the acronym in the industry, and that industry has evolved, and it has emerged, particularly driven by the COVID pandemic. And so with the COVID pandemic, everyone's aware of viruses and wiping surfaces and, cleaning beyond what they would normally clean in their homes. But air quality then became relevant as, people were attracting COVID and getting sick due to, airborne viruses and these things in the air. And so where GreenTech is focused is on indoor air quality. And we, portray and develop and, and engineer a variety of products and solutions in order to attack the space, in order to help you be safe and healthy.
Okay, so it's a very interesting timing positioning. So you can have some kind of air filter. So if you're in the same building as someone else who's sick, who may, I guess, air an airplane or something like that, yeah, way less likely to catch it, at least from the air system. That's not just circling back some COVID to you, some other sickness that's airborne, because you'll filter it in some way. Is that accurate?
That's correct. Yeah. So there's really two types. There's passive technology that we are all aware of utilizing a HEPA filtration and a filter, right? There is also active technologies that exist, and whether it's bipolar ionization, photocatalytic oxidation, those are things where it's taking a UV bulb and interacting with a certain honeycomb substrate or something like that, where it's actively going into the air and attacking the contaminant. That combined with filtration is an opportunity to combine technologies, right, to create a solution for the indoor air space. And so what's happening is these emerging technologies have came to the forefront of the industry, not just HEPA, but other technologies associated with that. And so what that's led to is consumers have rushed to the market, coming out of COVID, Now that it's over, there are companies they're really, really growing in this space and really carving out a name for themselves and creating, different technologies with different, patents and those kind of things, whether they're trade secrets associated with that product. And so it's confusing the customer to some degree because what they understand is filtration. And so there's barriers that you have to overcome in terms of an emerging industry. With that, with the confusion, emerging industries, present themselves with a multitude of opportunities. And so that's where we find ourselves today.
Okay, so yeah, it does sound confusing. So let's just like recap a little bit here because we're talking the difficulties of launching a new product in an emerging market, educating consumers, and not to turn this into an infomercial for your brand, but just so we have
Sure.
a little bit more in the detail of like, as a real concrete example, like what's the issue, for example, right now that the company is facing, like what the market knows about filtering, you say, but you have to sort of position that new approach, that new technology, or that like where's the challenge precisely, so we have it as an example for the rest of the conversation.
Yeah, so I think that's great way to start. I think the first thing is, starting with the why, right? And I think that's where we as consumers and then and running businesses, we need to start there. And sometimes we jump to a conclusion versus starting with the why, right? Why am I doing this as a business, as running a business, CEO of a business, or you're an entrepreneur? It's more of, why are we launching this product? Why are we doing this? What is the effort that we are behind? And then as the consumer, it's why do I need this product, right? It's more than just about price point, and it's more than just about generating revenue, right? It's more about, what are we delivering to that consumer or that end user, or why does that customer need that? So it's really a couple of things, and one is picking the right market and picking the right customer for the product as different verticals, whether it's a consumer, an e-com retail consumer, or whether it's a commercial consumer. We have a lot of cross-pollinated products across those verticals. And so the message could be different depending upon the audience. And what we want to make sure is that outside of price and outside of the need and the demand, is that we clearly articulate the value proposition associated with the product. That is absolute number one, is being able to clearly articulate the why. Why do you need the product and the difference that we can make for you in your need, right? Everyone has a need. And so air purification is more than just, keeping you healthy. It's all about odor removal. It's about, attacking VOCs, which are volatile organic compounds, and those kind of things, people don't really think about every day. But the things that we do think about is odor. And GreenTech is partnered with a proprietary technology on an exclusive level in air purification that attacks odor like nothing else. And so we're very excited about that. But that's a paradigm shift to some degree as we're explaining the value proposition to the consumer. And so what we're really thinking about is understanding our customer, understanding the vertical, and understanding why they want the product. Why would they want to buy this product? Regardless of what that's a product we have in our current product suite, or is that a product that we will launch at some point down the road? Understanding the customer first is absolute critical, particularly in an emerging market or any new market or new product launch.
Okay, perfect. So you understand well your customer, why they want it, and then you communicate clearly the value proposition. Let's say you've got this step nailed down. It took some work, some effort, and sweat and
Sure.
brainstorming, but you got it nailed down. Now you have a clear value proposition. You understand your market. How do you go about communicating that to that market?
Yeah, that's the challenge, right? You're
Yeah.
playing in, that's you've got a great product. There's a lot of great products that have existed, right? And they failed to some degree. I think about it in a three-pronged approach. It's all about A, the market, B, the right message, as you just discussed around the value proposition. And then third, it's about the channel partner. And in some cases, right, you may or may not have those already set up, or you may have to build that out. And in some cases, the third, the latter is much more difficult, and it takes time. It's all about having partners in the company, whether it's a board or whether it's an active investor, really understanding what the company is trying to do. Again, it's back to the why. Why are we doing this, right? Why are we trying to do it? We're trying to make a difference in the venture that whatever company you're associated with wants to attain. And so, it's all about the market, the message, and then the channel partner. And that's the most difficult, right? You've got the right product, and now you've clearly identified your message and the value proposition. Now it's about executing upon that strategy. And so it's about finding the right partner, having the right avenues, whether that's at a corporate relationship to help you drive the product through the appropriate channel, or whether it's through a distributor route. Those things take some time to figure out, launching at trade shows and those kind of things. What I found most successful for me is really learning on the fly, as any probably the CEO would tell you, is really getting out and understanding the space. There's all of it's easy to do research and Google and a lot of market analytics, and you can buy all kinds of you can spend all kinds of money on market intel and those kind of things and market studies from consulting firms. But the reality is, once you've picked the market and you feel like there's a need and there's a great market opportunity, you need to go see that and really going to a trade show, understanding who the players are, who the partners are, who knows that partner, and getting associated with that is really the step to making that dream come true and making that happen. And we're doing that in real time in terms of, we've got some product and some partners, but the path that we want to go is growing a much bigger business, is really working through that direction as well.
Okay. And just for the benefit of conversation here, do you sell B2B only, business to business, or do you sell also like direct to consumers, B2C, or?
We do. Yeah, we do both. So we do B2C as well as B2B, and we do e-com as well, right? We Amazon Play, whether it's off our direct website, and those kind of things. And so originally I talked about the messaging being different. Well, what we found out is, they may care about different things, but to some degree, it's very similar between the B2C and the B2B side.
Right. It's a person making the purchase for people. Exactly. So it's not that different, but it's true, may approach it differently. Consumers often a lot more price sensitive sometimes than businesses, but in both cases, you need to nail the value prop, otherwise you're not getting a sale.
Yeah, the business has is to nail the message, right? And if you're on e-com, you've picked that, that's your partner in terms of going as your go-to-market strategy behind that. Once you've identified that, it's just being able to execute and clearly make that message come across in the most humanized way to some degree.
Have you noticed any kind of difference in the tactics or strategy you'll use to try to outreach, connect with like B2B people or B2C people, or to educate that kind of crowd?
To your point, on the B2B, on the B2C side, it's totally different from what we do. Air purification is something that, on the B2B side, they want you to come test the product, right? We've spent millions of dollars in testing the product, not just at EPA laboratories, but also in real world settings. So, for instance, if you're interested in installing our product, whether it's an induct product, a mountable product, or a portable product, we actually will come out and test that product on the front end and show you the before and after results. In some cases, the consumer, you're not going to go to those kind of levels, right? In terms of, hey, I've got an issue, I know I want air purification, whether it's a mold situation or whether you have an odor, right? You've got multiple dogs or cats or those kind of things, or you do a lot of cooking seafood in your home. You're going to go to Amazon, right? Or something, or the intranet and really do your research. And so that message is, the message could be the same, but the ability to get that across is a little bit different. And so, the sales arc from a consumer to a B2B is a much longer sales arc on the B2B side in some cases.
Right. And the average ticket price of purchase on the B2B side can be way bigger. So then you can have that kind of approach of hands-on live demo. Let's go to your place business and let me show you the result of what you'd get before and after air quality, laboratory tests, and so on. So that's the
Yeah.
live demo approach, which is a lot more human capital intensive on the sales side. And I guess on the B2C side, is it a lot more like just more self-service and education through e-commerce and Amazon videos, or do you also offer
Yeah, it's a
like,
multitude, right? Those test results that we do on the B2B side, right? Those resonate to the
yeah,
B2C.
case
Yeah,
study for the
yeah,
B2C people then after. Yeah,
exactly,
exactly.
right? They
Okay.
resonate to that because the situation is if we've tested in a very a very unclean environment and we can show the results, right? Well, the reality is we can do the same thing in your home, and we've got products that do the same, right? Whether they're at um, a B2B side or they're focused on a B2C. So it's just the results are the same, and we can do the same level of impact.
And if we come back to your ABC or the C here, the channel partner, like what's your experience with this? Like, and if you're selling, I don't know if you are through other retail store distributors there, like how do you educate a consumer that can only see a box on the shelf? Like, do you go with like a pamphlet or some kind of a, sign stand, or like what's your approach? Because we're talking emerging market and educating customer who doesn't have a clue about the difference of this product.
Hey, that's right. A lot of a lot of video content, right? A lot of clear, and what we have found is keeping it simple is much better, right? And keeping it quick and simple is much better. And it just depends on your industry and your product, but we have found is keeping it simple and really displaying the message of what we do in a clear, concise way, so that and giving the consumer what's real, right? What we have never wanted to do is mislead anyone, right? And so we are much more, we try to be forthcoming in every aspect. So showing the video, showing the test result, both at a laboratory setting and then in a real world setting, it should give the consumer, the comfort, right? From our testing to our product and protocols, all the way down to the marketing launch. We try to be very forthcoming and work through that in a much human. Again, I go back to the humanized way, with them. That's what they care about. And we want to make sure our message is at a very human level
Okay.
versus this very high level science technology level where it's very difficult to make a good decision.
I've seen once in a while in those stores that they sometimes have some kind of a flat screen TV next to it, showcasing the product demo, like in a 2-minute spiel.
Sure.
I don't know
Yeah.
how efficient that is, but it sounds like an interesting avenue. And I don't know how much the store will charge you for that. But is that an avenue that you've explored?
Yeah, we have. We do a lot. Again, back to that. We've done that a lot of trade shows. We don't do a lot of business. GreenTech particularly doesn't do a lot of business in store retail. It's mostly digital and online. So the video
Yeah.
content and the reviews they're very helpful as well.
Yeah. So it makes sense because you see right away there's a strategy and a trend that's happening that, you know, with digital online, you have a lot of virtual real estate space there to educate people, lots of text, article, links to PDF, links to test results, case studies. You
Exactly.
have all kind of videos you can have and so on. So it's a great place to educate online, that's for sure. And then you have trade shows, which sort of gives you similar things. You have interactions with the customer longer with a rep, with the product specialist, and maybe video and pamphlets and booklets and this and that to support and educate. So it all comes back to, is it a good medium to educate a customer, I guess. And it sort of shows that naturally you're not going a lot toward the retail store side because it's just a box on the shelf, unless you pay extra to have a video next to it or something to educate the customer to that new tech that he
Right.
doesn't know about.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It goes back to the message, right? So when we think about the B2C side, that's our job as a corporate entity is to get that value proposition across directly toward the consumer. When you think about the B2B side and you think about trade shows and you think about those kind of things, we love a trade show because we get to have the interaction directly with the consumer and the business owner or the corporation. In a lot of cases, we're educating both. We're educating the consumer. We're also educating the channel partner. A lot of if you're down the distribution route, you have to educate the consumer. I mean, the distributor on the product from a sales perspective. And so that's another challenge is we invest heavy in testing. We invest heavy in those areas, but we also invest in training. And so we have a corporate trainer. He's got 10 years with the company. He's on staff. and he does a lot of training with the distributors, with the B2B side, to really help them understand how to sell the technology. Because it's not just selling, a watch or a phone. This is an emerging product to some degree. And, while air purification has been around a while, it's not been mainstream, or it hasn't been top of mind to the consumer. And so it's very important that we help them in their journey in a path to purchase.
Right. In a business like yours here, for everybody, there's only three buckets, if you wish, for marketing and sales. So you have one that is, inbound stuff. You generate like a marketing material online people can consume and get to your store, or advertising, and it's just inbound marketing. Then you have the outbound marketing that if you have in kind of Salesforce, doing like cold call, cold email, LinkedIn outreach, whatever. And then you have the last bucket, which is like partnerships and referrals, word of
Right.
mouth marketing and all that stuff. It just goes in that last bucket here. So in a company like yours here, are you doing the outreach? What kind of outreach are you trying to go? And I'm guessing you're going at maybe more after the B2B side of like try to solicitate big companies like with some kind of pitch about, hey, air quality, I don't know, and what's like sort of the hook for this. I'm kind of curious what's going on for the outreach.
Yeah, on the outreach, there's a lot of, you really use digital both ways, right? We're utilizing a lot of trade shows to launch new products, and utilizing the digital space, whether that's just email blast campaigns, targeted emails, around an approach. We utilize Amazon, we utilize the B2C side to give us the data on the B2B side. And so digital is an effort for us, because that's an opportunity for you to learn. And that's one of the big takeaways when you're launching a product in an emerging market, is learning. And again, right, you can have you can pick the right market, you can pick the right message, but you're going to learn a lot along the way, right? Do you have the right market? Do you have the right partner in that market? You may have the right market, you may have the right product and the right message, but you don't have the right partner. And so those are the things that, while you may get frustrated, you have to stay the course. And you have to be patient as you work through those, because the organization will go through a lot of learning, associated with that. And so that's the exciting thing about it. But to your point, we're breaking it down between, what we learn in the B2C also rolls over to the B2B. So we're working with, channel partners, who we're trying to target, right? Whether it's top 10 corporate accounts, top 10 purchase groups, or the top 10, those kind of things. We're really targeted at that level, and we develop KPIs off of that. And then we develop the marketing plan, whether it's an outreach or whether it's we have partners that know someone, by just word of mouth and approaching it that way.
Okay, so you mentioned KPIs for partners, so key performance indicator here, that like you identify like a top 10 potential partner list, I guess, and you sort of outreach to them, try to educate them, and then track like how much business you can actually do with that person. Did you educate them? Did you onboard them? And is that
Yeah.
the kind of systematic tracking?
Yeah. Let's say, for instance, we're focused on corporate accounts, right? So let's say that we've picked a vertical and we want this product specifically in this vertical. Boom. Then we've identified the top 10 accounts that are associated with that. Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to attack all 10 of these accounts, but we know, right, that there's only so many of these that we can chase and execute at one time, whether that's 3, 4, 5, 6, or maybe 7, 8, or 9, 10, depending on how quickly they each ramp. But just because you have a corporate account in some cases does not mean that that's an automatic path to purchase for all of their facilities or all of their network, right? Typically, that's a hunting license that enables you then as an organization to then have corporate buy-in. You're now an approved vendor for X, whatever that, IAQ or whatever that odor solution for that would be our a metric would be. And then we would chase, it's all about lead generation at that point, and being able to then to go, okay, well, now we've got corporate buy-in. Now let's go get the regional guys. And that's where in most cases, and what we have seen for what we do, that's how that process works, is once you have the corporate buy-in, that's the enchilada that you want in order to then go and have the license available to then go, what I call a hunting license, to go chase other new opportunities within their group. And so within that, you have that mostly across all of these channels. But that's just one very small example.
Okay, so corporate buy-in, so you want like C-level as high as you can get, basically buy-in to your product, you as a partner, as a product to distribute for them as a distributor, and then you can just work your way down the organization,
Sure,
educate
sure.
people, and so on. Any
Yeah.
tips, advice that you found in terms of like how to connect with those kind of distributors? Just like you find them in the directory, you call them up and hope for the best, or is there anything else?
Well, I think you have to, again, it goes back to, again, I got talked about market, message, and partner. Once you've kind of, once the organization has, you've developed the product, and in cohesion with that, you're working your go-to-market strategy, and you've determined that there's a viable market here for you to go into. The next step is to, get the resources available to help you do that. So, what I like to do and what we've done is really work with, can you find that salesperson, right? Or that direct sales lead or that channel, whatever you want to call those people, the channel owner that has experience pushing like-minded or similar product into that similar space. Because with that, then they come with, okay, here's the approach, and here's some people that we know, whether it's a distributor, whether it's a corporate account, they can really help you, be much quicker there. Now, if not, right, it's just really, again, it's having the will, you have to have the drive to win, and you have to really just, put your head down and chase these things and work really hard. And at some point, you'll see some success as you work through those.
Okay, so as a shortcut, you can have a sales rep that has relevant industry experience to
Sure.
connect you to the right person. Otherwise, you start from scratch like everybody else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not starting from scratch, but it's, again, I go back to the front end on these type of situations. It's good to have a lot of good, investors or board partners to really help you, kind of think, get those lead. It's all about lead generation. And if you've got people that have relationships, those are great places to start. But ultimately it's got to be on the company to execute. And so, having the right assets and the right people to clearly articulate what you're trying to do is very critical.
Okay. So then like the major B2C distributors, stuff like the Walmart, the Costco, that's probably way, way down the road one day once we have actually a more mature, more educated market at large, right?
Could be. I mean, it could be. It's mostly, that's a whole different that in itself is very similar, because you got to have a guy or a gal, whoever, that knows the space, right, and knows how you get there. Whether it's, and most of those go through a broker relationship, and we've had success there, and we've got similar newer product, but we've had success there primarily because we have a person on staff that knows the space, and so can plug you in directly, and that's those people exist out there, and they can really help you be much quicker to market than what you would be. And so I'm all about aligning the organization with people that know how to execute the strategy that you've put before them, and that's very helpful
Okay.
to accelerate growth.
Right. So it sounds like, well, you need to, obviously, the first problem is that we have an uneducated market about the difference of the new technology and new product. It's an emerging market. We need to educate them. So pretty much everything that allows us to educate them, you guys need to work really hard, generate lots of PDFs, of videos, of web page, of whatever, make noise, and you need to generate a ton of education material, basically. And then what's a good sales channel is if it allows you to educate that potential customer or distributor. Then you use whatever connection you can have, either investors, board members, staff, the sales staff that's highly experienced, that can connect you in the right places to speed up channel partners and distributors to push your product there. And of course, trade shows very interesting. It's a good one with the direct, ability to educate customer. In addition, of course, to e-commerce, which is probably the top one, since people can, as soon as they're interested in the product, that you've driven traffic to that website, it's a relevant traffic, relevant lead, they can educate themselves as much as they want with all the content you're generating. So it seems to be overall the big picture that I'm getting from this so far Is there any aspect that we sort of missed or have not covered that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, I would just, be excited when you're in these situations and these opportunities. They're exciting ones to grab a hold of and work through. You'll do a lot of learning along the way, and you're always going to be, really to some degree, a lifelong learner. That's what we found out and that we continue to find out as we're doing the same thing in real time here is really, continuing to learn, about the space. And so trade shows are a great way to do that. But it comes back to what the three things I talked about. It's the market, it's the message, and then it's the right partner to really help you do that. And so there's a multitude of different ways to go about that, depending upon your business and depending upon the structure that you have, and resources available. But it really comes down to those three things. And if you can clearly articulate your value proposition and you've got it with the right partner, I feel like you'll have success.
Right. And you're touching an interesting point here for any business or business leaders there that you're talking like, stay sort of excited about the journey here, because it's a journey that is challenging. Each time you're sort of pushing the frontier on something, you're leading a new industry, you need to educate customers, consumers. It can be a bit scary for the business and the leadership team if we're open and honest about it, because you can have setbacks. It's a sort of uncharted territory. You have to trailblaze that thing. So anything that you sort of have in mind regarding this topic, it's a bit more mushy of a topic, but like facing sort of the maybe the anxiety it can give, or the light fear it can give. It's like, oh, okay, this is challenging, or we're trying that thing. Oh, it's not working. Like, what do we need to pivot or adjust here? How do I handle this, perhaps like emotionally as a business leader, to like keep going through?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, because we've done that, right? We back last year we started out down one path, and then as we did learning, we realized, yeah, that's not the right path to go, right? And that's being honest with yourself about where you are. I think that's always the right way to go. It's being honest with not just the business, but as a CEO, being honest with the board, right, about where your company is or where that product is. Is very important to do, and I think that's what we had to do, and we pivoted quickly, right? We pivoted quickly. We focused in on, okay, this isn't working out, so what are we going to focus on? We focus on one. Where do we have what is our competitive advantage? Number one, we want to think about what is our competitive advantage. It's the number one priority. The second piece is, where does that competitive advantage, like if you look at it in an old school Venn diagram, right? And thinking about what does the customer care about, and if you hit that and you get that right, then that will nail down where you need to go and where you possibly may need to look in terms of the vertical approach. So nailing down your competitive advantage is number one. It's very difficult to do that. And then the final thing is, once you figure that out, is aligning the organization is the other thing, right? Because again, it's been executing one way for the past 6-9 months. And now you're quickly going to turn and say, okay, we're going to have a sense of urgency. And this is leading change, by the way. That's the number one approach that you should take, is create a sense of urgency on why we're going to make this change, right? And in my mind, it's in order to win and create a viable, sustainable, long-term growth business. And so that's where we work. And so it's all about pivoting quickly and understanding what the competitive advantage is and where we want to go and where we want to play. And then finally, it's executing the agenda. So you develop the operating agenda and then align all the resources in the business to go execute that, right? And if they're not executing, and that's the most challenging and the most exhausting when you're in the business day to day is execution and making sure that you've got daily operating meetings and go through the agenda to make sure that the team is focused on the right initiative. And if they're not, you take them off that initiative, and really putting what I call steel behind target, to make sure that you got assets focused in the right direction for the company.
This is a great insights. Thanks for sharing this. So yeah, I like the idea for the change management and leading change, having a sense of urgency. Let's win together. I really like that one, definitely. So I think we've had a fairly good coverage of the topic. So, as last sort of shotgun question, is there anything else that you'd like to share on this topic?
Perseverance, perseverance, right? It's a winning attitude. That's you can't do it alone. If you're the CEO of a business, you can't do this alone, right? You've got to have people locked in with you, because you guys are on the front, whoever, right? You are on the front lines of growing a business and really creating something awesome and exciting, that can drive value for everyone. And again, starting with the why and understanding why you're doing things and persevering to success.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Brandon, for sharing your wisdom with us today. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Yeah, great. My email is Brandon T at greentechenv.com. Again, that's Brandon T at greentechenv.com. I'm also on LinkedIn under Brandon Taylor, associated with GreenTech Environmental. And then that's pretty much the easiest way to get in touch with me.
All right. Well, thanks for being here today.
All right. Thank you.